Listen sharply to this discourse. This is just a natural talk that I'm having with you because I want to convey an attitude. I want to convey a spirit that we all need to step into. Because this has to do with Cancer Mercury transit, Mercury brings to mind algorithms of the third house as well as the sixth house. The third house is where we imply and we infer. The sixth house is where we make ritual, formula, process, or service towards the 10th house, which is our capacity to show up for greater responsibilities and duties, as well as the formulation of our character. So in Cancer, what is this about? This is about how we imply and how we infer the emotional loads, conversations, communications, and interactions. And whether or not we are intentional enough about seeking an understanding, seeking to understand while being understood, listening actively so that we can have an understanding, asking the questions that brings the understanding, not exposure, not arrogance, domination, not trying to humiliate someone or drag someone, but to really seek the understanding, bringing the conversation into privacy where the person can be vulnerable, giving assurance that you reverence and honor what is sacred between you and the other person. How are we doing in these areas? Also, at the sixth house, what is our service to the motherly instinct and the motherly principle in life that regardless of us being males or females, we have a connection to? We all have this understanding that nurturing, advocacy, emotional security is never separate from our best experiences with ourselves. So at the sixth house, what routines, what services, what rituals do we have in place to make sure that we are always in the capacity at the 10th house to show up for our responsibility as nurturers, our duty as comforters and healers? What are we doing to construct and uphold and frame the character, the image at the 10th house that has us to be known as nurturing, caring, empathetic, compassionate, even healing, motherly, or fatherly? What are we doing to make sure that that is part of our image? Well, I hope that you will have this conversation, not just with yourself, but find someone to have these conversations with, because it's important. Thank you for listening. Please hit the like, the share, and comment below as you find something interesting that you may relate to. Someone may relate to what it is that you have to say. So listen to the discourse and let's see what we could do to become the nurturing community that we need to be, becoming who we have been looking for. Understand? From June 8th to June 26th, from June 8th until June 26th, we have Cancer Mercury transit 2025. Understand? What we can expect is emotional clarity, advocacy, and healing. Now, let's not be commercial with the word healing. Let's say it and mean it. Healing. In particular, what healing looks like in this case is finally being able to articulate, explain matters of the heart. The emotional clarity coming from the power and influence of Mercury, which is a cognitive force, a cognitive satellite, Lord of the ethereal body that we walk with. Mercury reads directly from the sun, which is the heart, the soul. The image of that, in hindsight of experiences, it forms an image based on patterns of emotional experiences, and that is lunar, the moon. These are the expressions of the inner child who has to have advocacy and who could require healing. Ultimately, we want to have healthy experiences in relationships. We want to be able to get along, negotiate, reason, bargain, or even argue fairly. There's parts of ourselves that we want to be acknowledged and included in what should be considered in the workplace, in our relationships, the home environment. It can be complicated to explain, hey, I feel like this when you say that, or I feel like this when you do that. It's challenging for me to relate to you or to respect you or to get along when you react that way or behave that way. There are very difficult conversations that we have not had yet. The pink elephant is still in the room. Even though we have our white rag and we want to surrender to a peace treaty, we want to move forward. But that pink elephant in the room, who's going to say something? It's not easy when we can't trust ourselves to say something. That's what really makes the difference. If I could get a little more clarity to explain it, to articulate it, to choose the right words, to present it the right way. Mercury is there to assist in that. It brings more logic into the emotion, and it brings more emotion into the logic. Now, we can deliver effectively. We want to take advantage of this transit, sit with ourselves, and take notice of the difference. I'm able to identify better how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and even why, where it's coming from. I'm able to identify better how to advocate for myself or someone else who I feel could use a voice, support, backing, defense, a good fighter in the corner, or even just simply compassion to be remembered. This transit allows these very sophisticated communications to manifest naturally. Mercury will do all of the effort. We just need the intention. Let's not take for granted that this is being offered to us. And if there is somewhere where we can forgive, let's motion in the direction of forgiveness. If there's somewhere where we can meet someone halfway with what they struggle with, let's do all that we can. Reconciliation, pardoning, calling the truce, peace, being the bigger person, making the first motion or the first call. Humility can never take away from you, and it can never make you lesser. If only we understood I don't want us to miss the opportunity in this transit. So let's set our intentions now to do the best that we can, to connect with whoever we need to connect with, wherever there are burning bridges, isolation, animosity, and grudges. If there is any possibility of calling the truce and making peace, reconciliation, forgiveness, pardoning, if you see that someone needs an advocate, someone who may not be as strong as you, someone who may not have the communication skills that you have, perhaps we could show a little support to those who are weaker, speaking up and lifting our voice for those who are weaker. Not enabling their frailty, not enabling cowardice, but recognizing that if strength is given to you, it could be a trust, and we should fulfill the trust. Who can we speak up for? Who can we advocate for? Who can we share our strength with? Can I find the right words to have that difficult conversation? The right moment, the right tone, and delivery. Because the conversations have to be had if it's bearing on the heart. You're aware that the pink elephant is there. The other person is very aware that it's there. And it might be you who has to be the bigger person. Let's take initiative in causing healing to take place, connections, resolutions, peace treaties, coming together. How intentional can we be in lining up with not only Cancer Mercury transit, but also Cancer Jupiter transit? There's a strong emphasis at Cancer. This calls for our motherly instincts, our nurturing instincts. It calls for us to align with who we are through compassion, who we are through empathy, what we can feel for that the person is not saying, but yet it has to be heard. Feeling for what they're struggling to say. Maybe they're intimidated, afraid, not wanting to be judged, hoping that they will be understood this time and not dismissed. We have to use our intuition to home in on what is there and acknowledge it. We have to get proactive with using our intuition. When you have conversations with certain people, you can hear it. Something's there. Something's bothering them. You can hear it that they're going through a lot. You can see it. You can sense it. I'm not asking that anyone should do what is beyond their capacity, but what I am asking is that we begin to treat each other like a brotherhood or like a sisterhood. We can't just dump our emotional burdens on the next person. No, that's not what I'm calling for. But what I am calling for is to practice the spirit of community. It can start with us to practice it. Being a brother, being a sister, but having the strength not to just simply be exploited or used. Understand? I'm not asking you to be foolish. Now is the time where we can take advantage of navigating very choppy seas, murky waters, the brackish waters that are very difficult to see through. How often do we avoid the most important and critical moments where we should say something? Not saying something to be overbearing, to be controlling, aggressive, or confrontational, but saying something knowing that I could be part of what gives this person confidence to understand that I want to see a solution just as much as they do. I'm disappointed that we're not talking. I'm disappointed that we're not happy with each other. I'm disappointed that we haven't been getting along. And I wish it would be another way. Starting at that attitude and starting at that point, how can we heal this? Without asking someone to move forward, without acknowledgement. I can never tell you how to feel. You could never tell me how to feel about anything. When it comes to feelings, we have to meet everyone where they are at. Not the arrogance of, you come here where I am. No, we must go and meet the soul in pain, the soul in grief, where they are at. Can we become skilled, courageous, even masterful at connecting with the emotional body of others? Can we learn how to do it again? Can we live as if we do have the power of intuition, not using it to expose someone, humiliate someone, incriminate someone, inflict pain or guilt on a person, but to use it to reassure, to connect deeply, to transfer the feeling to someone that you are not alone. I may not have all of the answers. I may not have all of the solutions, but I'm present with you until we can find it together. What good are we if this is not who we can be? What good are we? Mercury comes to connect the mind and the heart through emotional awareness, self-awareness. It's by the power of Mercury that we're able to step out of the lunar light of the self and see that there's a reflection between the solar light and the lunar light. That is self-awareness. If I'm feeling a way, which is lunar, I'm reflecting an awareness. Solar. But we have to step outside of ourselves to see that if the moon is illuminated, it is by reflection of the sun. The moon does not have its own light. Feelings and emotions are not just there just to be there. They're coming from somewhere, and where it's coming from is the soul. And the soul can read the soul of others as well. And the inner child has its amplified voice within that soul. But what happens when we become negligent of that inner child? What happens when we betray that inner child? What happens when we do not advocate for the inner child? What comes of us? We will see it all reflected in the moon. Our emotions, our feelings about ourselves. And it will be reflected in how we feel about others and what we think others are feeling about us. Self-awareness comes through Mercury, stepping into the cognitive mind to oversee what is being expressed through the intuitive mind, the moon. It's a realization of our own image and being in action. Stepping outside of ourselves and seeing how we affect others with our facial expressions, our tone, our behavior, the way we walk, our posture, our demeanor, the patterns that we have throughout the day, the way that you said that, the way that you did that. It does make a difference. The self-awareness that allows you to see how you handle yourself. When you made the wrong turn, you left your keys at the house, you made a mistake in some paperwork or some daily schedule. How do you talk to yourself? How do you handle yourself? What are some things that you say to yourself that you ought not say to yourself? When we get used to speaking to ourselves in abusive language, speaking to ourselves in disrespectful language, it could reflect in how you spoke to that person. We need some self-awareness. We need to be aware of how we're handling our emotional body, how we're representing and advocating for our inner child, and who we are when our emotions are intensified. How are we at communicating difficult conversations? We want to be trusted with secrets. We want to be trusted with the truth. But when we hear the truth, who do we become? We become violent. But yet it's a mystery to us why somebody keeps lying to you. Look what you do when they tell you the truth. With self-awareness coming, there could be a shock. The shock of not realizing that that's how you are. That you've been doing this or doing that all along. Noticing your shadow. Hearing your own voice. Who's going to let him know? Who's going to let her know? Who's going to let him know that he makes us feel like that? Who's going to let her know that she makes us feel like that? You know, your children could be saying that about you. But they wouldn't dare do it because they're terrified. Your husband could say that about you. Your wife could be saying that about you. But nobody dares say it because you have a chip on your shoulder. Fiery temper. Fast to anger. Wrathful. Nobody can calm you down. You go off on a tangent. You become all undone. Your emotions get all wacky and you spin out of control. I'll just keep it to myself. I won't say anything. Who's going to tell you anything except for what flatters you when we show up like that? You hear flattery, 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 compliments and flattery. And then behind you, they say the truth. Can we get real? We have to master the hard conversations. Once we have achieved learning who we were as it relates to attachments, which had us to seek control of others, of circumstances, of outcomes, of resources. And when we find that we can't have the control that we want, we fall apart, we become violent. We do and say things we regret, we suffer or cause suffering. It's a mess. It's a dramatic mess. And we learned a lot from the Cancer Mars retrograde. So now we're at the opportunity of realizing that we have the option for connections rather than toxic attachments. Mastering the hard conversations are more possible now. Imagine realizing that you can be honest, you can be frank, you can be objective and direct without aggression, without disrespect. All you need is a little wisdom, sensitivity, and patience, taking your time to deliver the message. We can craft our words. We can craft our sentences. We can craft our message. Believe me, I am the worst of them. And I'm still learning. I'm not where I want to be. But my mind is made up that I will get it right. because it does matter the words that I choose. It does matter the tone that I use. It does matter. It doesn't matter where I came from, because there's no justification. We can do better. Let's master the hard conversations. What about when you feel really angry? You feel really disappointed. You feel disrespected. You know for sure that somebody's trying you and testing you, pushing your buttons, stirring you up. Why do we fall for that? Did we not realize that we could go higher even though they're trying to take you lower? Did we realize that? Did we realize that we do have an option every time on how we're going to respond? That we can evolve out of reactions? We can trust ourselves to have difficult conversations, knowing that I don't need to control, dominate, or dictate over another person's will. I may not like their honesty, I may not like their opinion, I may not like their point of view, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that I have to get out of character. We have to mature enough to have difficult conversations from the point of detachment. Because from detachment, we're not personalizing everything. And the opportunities are greater. You can be aware that the words that they're using or what came out of their mouth, it doesn't feel good, this message. It doesn't feel good what they just told me. It doesn't feel good what they're explaining to me. As long as the person is not disrespecting you, or abusing you, we have the option to listen from a point of detachment, to hear out. And we only need our boundaries to keep us secure, to preserve us in vulnerable spaces. We only need to be good advocates of our boundaries. We don't need aggression. There are difficult conversations that we have deemed impossible because we don't trust ourselves with those conversations. And because of that, we throw everything away. We call it over. We have a divorce. We quit the job. We write the person off. We burn the bridge. We divide the family. I'm not talking to them. They better not talk to me. I'm going to block. I'm going to delete. At the South Node is Virgo. And in the shadow or detriment of Virgo, there's a habit that Virgo has. And that habit is to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's polarity Pisces. It's to keep it all. If Pisces sees a drop of good, it will keep the contaminated body. If Virgo sees a drop of bad, it will throw away the whole body. Do we understand? Virgo's boundaries are very rigid. And Pisces don't have no boundaries. We have to negotiate between the two. We can't continue throwing value away just because there is imperfection in the person or imperfection in the experience. Calling the quits instead of enduring through the difficult experiences that offers us growth and development and maturity. It's time for a new mindset, a mature mindset that takes all of these things into consideration. We've got to scrub our minds and our attitudes of the things that we have absorbed from social media. Pretty girls and charismatic guys with cell phones, camera phones, giving you the worst advice that you could ever take into your life practice. Narcissistic philosophers. We have to build back our appreciation and reverence for family, for community. And for mutual support. We have to build it. And it's going to take patience. We've got to get good at the hard conversations, and we have to learn to stop avoiding difficult conversations. We have to stop avoiding the conversations that makes the difference. You know the pink elephant is there in the room. Have the discipline to address it. Nip it in the bud. Assertively, not aggressively. Nip in the bud as you go. Do not go to sleep in animosity with your brother or your sister. We have to get there. We have to stop going to sleep in animosity with other people. Either make peace or let it go. But don't go to sleep and marinate on animosity, hatred, stubborn refusal to consider forgiveness. Where are we going with these dark hearts that we drag around expecting good in life? Where are we going with that? I know we could do better. And we can be the best examples if we choose to. This Mercury transit is going to bring heightened sensitivity and vocalization concerning tribalism and nationalism. As you see already, the border issues with ICE, Los Angeles with the National Guard being called in. Okay, there's a lot going on concerning the border issue. The first thing I want to say is don't fall for the bait of racism and hatred. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging, okay, that there's a difference between legal and illegal immigration, and that there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things. And it does make a difference for there to be order in a country. And there should be something done to restore order. But I'm not here to go into what is extreme and what is appropriate. But what I'm saying is, don't go so far as to hating people because of the race or nationality that they are. Please don't fall for that. And also have compassion. Yes, some people came here who didn't go through the legal steps and process to get here. The same ones who's kicking them out for it, their forefathers did the same thing. Okay, the maritime contract is up, and if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. The maritime contract been up. These same people went all over the earth, raping, robbing, and stealing land, flags, women, children, human beings, you name it. So there's no righteous person in this situation, but there is law and order that we all should reverence. Understand? So anyway, having said that, this is going to cause conversations, debates, challenging missions of discovery concerning origins. Where do I come from, or where do my ancestral origins evolve from? What is my nationality, and what does that mean? Who do I belong to? What side am I on? I'm down with Arabs. I'm down with South American. I'm down with African American. I'm down with Jewish. I'm down with whatever. Okay? This is where flags, tribes, and demographics are going to have in-house discussions that attempts to separate themselves in the mix of confusion in what's going on today concerning the border and who has right to what, and what is morally correct, and what is virtually correct, and what is legally correct. Okay, there are many different arguments to have. At the end of the day, we all will arrive at the human origin that we all have. And the common ground that we all stand on in that survival, the instinct to have children and create families, the instinct to live secure and safe, stable, the instinct to seek a sense of dignity, pride, independence, resourcefulness. After we finish detailing our differences, it's only going to lead us back to realizing the unification behind all of it, and that we are more the same than we are different. So if we allow the smoke and the noise to take its course, that's where it's going to end at. And there are filthy, greasy, rich hands that love to see all of us go back and forth at each other's throats about who should have certain rights and privileges and who shouldn't, so on and so forth. And I'm not here to say that some of those arguments shouldn't be had. I'm not here to say that those discussions should not be had because it should. There is a right and a wrong, legally, morally, and ethically. And it's healthy for us to argue those things. But what's not healthy is for us to stoop so low as to be puppets and instruments, tools, useful idiots, to create the very confusion that keeps us separated and at a disadvantage and blind to who the real enemies are. Principalities in high places. So through the smoke, we have to have the focus. We have to have the focus, find the fine balance in whatever we're claiming. Understand? During this time, you're really going to want to speak up for what you consider your people. And I'm all for it. It doesn't have to be in my favor for you to speak up for your people because I expect you to speak up for your people. Yeah, whatever you are, British, Chinese, Asian, African, Brazilian, Canadian, I don't care. You're supposed to speak up for your people. You're supposed to argue and negotiate for your people. You're supposed to feel sensitive about what your people of your demographic is going to. You're supposed to. And we're not supposed to walk around lying, pretending like we're not supposed to, or like there's something wrong with feeling that way. You're Asian and you see Asian people being treated a certain way. You're Hispanic, you see Hispanic people being treated a certain way. You're white and you see white people being treated a certain way. So on and so forth. Yeah, you're supposed to have that reaction. You're supposed to want to get involved because you see your sister or your brother as yourself, of your ancestral origin. That's natural. It's how we're supposed to be. How can I tell you not to feel like that? So we're going to speak up for ourselves, but in speaking up for ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should go so far as to vilify others who are not us. We could argue the point, we could clarify. Yeah. But to vilify, it's not necessary. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean that you become delusional. And it's like, for example, you're not vilifying me if you say to me, you're an African American. Okay, yes, that's true. So-called, all right? Yeah, man, so my kid was going to an is going to be going to an all-black school, and I'm really concerned because, going to an all-black school, he's probably going to have a lot of problems with this or problems with that. Someone may say that person is speaking hate, but I beg to differ. Because first of all, I'm African American, and I'm able to acknowledge my shadows. Just as much as I'm able to acknowledge the light, I can acknowledge the dark. I can keep it real. I can keep it a buck. So you're not speaking hate if you tell me about the prejudices and the stereotypes that I know we propel, we push, we participate in, we enable, we advertise, we promote. Okay? So this whole gangster thug stigma, it didn't just come out the air. This whole turn up culture with my sisters of my community, and being sex objects, it didn't just come out the air. It's because too many of us are demonstrating that. Too many of us are making that true. Too many of us are promoting the prejudices and the stereotypes every time we step outside the door. So it's not hate for somebody to call that out. It's like when you go to a comedy show, you go to a comedy show, and what makes comedy is, the honesty. It's the honesty. They say something about black people, they say something about white people, ha ha ha. You laugh, you laugh, you laugh. But what made it funny is the fact that there's a lot of truth to it. That's not hatred. To acknowledge what something is not hatred. What is hatred is to characterize someone inaccurately in a demeaning or oppressive, way through indictments that holds no weight in truth or evidence. You're coming from hating that. So I'm not saying be delusional. Find the balance. Be realistic. Because where I'm getting at with that is, if I'm able to acknowledge that those who are behind my flag and those who are behind your flag, behind every flag, there are people who represent and people who misrepresent that flag. So if I understand that about myself, then I understand that about you. If I know that in the African American community, there are people who give us terrible misrepresentation, while I also know that there are people who struggle to give the best representation that they can. So if I know this to be true about myself in the community that I come from, I have the capacity to understand that that's also the case for your community where you come from as a Brazilian, an Asian or Hispanic or a European or whatever you are. It's the same for you. So if I see one jackass doing something stupid and they happen to be Asian, white, or African, or Hispanic or whatever, I'm not going to charge the whole flag with that. No. I seen a couple of donkeys doing typical white shit, doing typical black shit, typical Hispanic. Yeah, it's typical shit that all of us do. All of us do shit that's typical. Yeah, who doesn't? And that's part of the duality point that brings the understanding together and a tolerance too. Because now I understand I can't charge a whole people because a couple of jackasses that's misrepresenting, who their people are. You know what I mean? But anyway, I think we get the point. Listen, my overall message is this, okay? I didn't get too detailed in this discourse. My intention is, okay, to instigate the opening of our minds and the opening of our hearts to a new chapter in our life that includes being willing to brave difficult conversations, being willing to brave peace negotiations, reconciliation, forgiveness, healing, and pardoning, being able to have the courage to advocate for others who may not be as bold, strong, or resourceful, or articulate. A new chapter that lays the foundation for brotherhood and sisterhood, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it. But we can't have it if we can't trust each other. Understand? So let's move in that motion and get in that attitude, get in that spirit, get in that energy. You know what I mean? And let's show up for that. Start it right now in your family, in your life, you know, and making your mind up that I'm going to have those difficult conversations. I'm going to do so assertively, you know what I mean? With compassion, with understanding, and with the intention to to understand and be understood. Yeah. I'm not going to listen to rebuttal. I'm not going to listen to reply. I'm going to listen to understand. Yeah. I'm going to meet people where they're at, not expect them to meet me where I'm at. I'm going to meet them where they're at as a starting point. You know what I mean? I'm going to get good at listening, not just hearing. I'm going to get good at rising to a response, not a reaction. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my perception to a brotherly or sisterly perception when I see the next man or see the next woman. Because that's who I am and that's what I believe in. You know what I mean? It may not sound like much what I'm saying, but I think that you're going to see that it really is much. And we can afford it. If you haven't already, schedule for your natal birth chart reading. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate. Stay engaged, stay aligned, stay sharp. Comment down below what you think about this message personally or, not. I'm not telling you to put your business out there, but just share. What do you think about this attitude, this intention, and showing up for it? You know what I mean?